Hi, my name is Juan Vega, and for this class of World Geography, I chose to read and analyze the book of Evicted Poverty and Profit in the American City, wrote by Matthew Desmond. And in this presentation, I will talk about the book and, most important, the connections that I found with the themes that we discussed along this class in the semester. Starting with the book, the author, Matthew Desmond, a sociologist that studies the connection between poverty and housing in the United States, uses his principal argument that the instability in the housing is one of the biggest causes of poverty and inequality of the US. This book is located, and this story is located in Milwaukee, where Desmond literally lived with his family of low incomes to understand what was happening from the inside. And the most strong idea comes out of the book that losing your home is not just losing your home, is losing stability, education, dignity, and that makes this theme too much deep than it thinks. This book follows some characters of real life, but the most important are these four. The first one is Arlene, that is a single mother that tries to live with their two kids when she has a situation where she needs to be moving one to another house over and over. Then Lamar, that is a man with a handicap, that with a handicap he works hard and breaks completely this stereotype of people that poor people don't want to work. Then Sharena, that for me is the most important in this book because she explains the whole system. She's a person that has apartments, bad apartments, and she rents it to poor families. So then she keeps the house when they can't afford it. And for last one, Scott, an ex-nurse that lost everything after an accident that came with an addiction, and like the couple that I can remember, the alcoholic couple that were living in the houses, those are the main characters. First, I want to explain how this eviction cycle works, because it's what gets trapped the families, because first they can't afford the rent because the salaries are low and the rents are high, and then they had to evict from their homes, and everything they have is in the streets in front of the neighbors, which is very humiliating. After this, they have a bad record and nobody will like to rent them, and at the end they will end in worse and worse neighborhoods. So Desmond shows that this is a cycle that is almost impossible to break without a structural change. Now I want to give you the connections that I found in this book and the themes that we saw in the class. The first connection that I found is with When Helping Hurts, where we learned about the three types of help. The relief, that is a immediate help, like giving food or clothes for the night. Then there is the rehabilitation, that is helping the people to recover in a medium term, and development, that is the solution in long term. And that's what Desmond emphasized, that the long-term project is what really gets the poor people out, with education, with opportunities. The problem with Evicted is that the most of the families only gets the relief help, a little of money, a little of food, and how we see at the end, the system of Milwaukee is designed to maintain the people in relief forever, because people like Sharena in the book win money exactly from this instability. The other connection that I found is the redlining and the food deserts, two things that we saw about Chicago in this class. And what surprised me is that Milwaukee has exactly the same path. The north side of Milwaukee, where live almost all the Afro-American families was relented. In the book explains the banks didn't want to give them loans, so the neighborhoods with the worst conditions and the most eviction rates will kept like that, and the food deserts started to appear. And here is the key connection, that the housing, the food, and the education, it's all connected, so you can't fix one without fixing the other. So this is not an accident. This is a result of a lot of bad politic and urban decisions. The other connections that I found was the God complex and the theme of identity and tribalism. The God complex that we saw in When Helping Hurts is when somebody feels superior and decides what other people needs without asking them. Shirina is a perfect example because she acts like people were doing her a favor, when in the reality she's taking an advantage of their desperation. And in the way of identity and tribalism that we saw, for example, in the midterm, those families evicted are judged for etiquettes like poor, black, single mom, evicted. So these etiquettes build walls that block them from works or better opportunities. So this tribalism makes impossible the cooperation and converts real people in just stereotypes. The other connection that I was very surprised is that the families in that are evicted are like intern refugees in their own country. We saw in the class the Syria crisis, and of course the other contexts are very different, but there's a lot of similarities too to think, because Arlen moves out more than 10 times in a short time. So their kids change everything, their friends, their school, they lose their friends. So I think like international refugees, like families that are evicted or are evicted a lot of times, they lose their community. They have to start from zero and to face discrimination all over the places. So that makes me think about how this economic problem could see, and how can we figure it out. And in my perspective view, this book made me reflect a lot about the Bible and how Jesus talked about taking care of the poor, of the single moms, to the kids without them a family. And Darling, as a single mom, is exactly the person that Jesus talked to us to defend or to take care. But the most important thing that I learned is that the book shows that good intentions are not enough, because working in our wrong way can affect. And as a Christians and as future leaders, we have the responsibility of involve us in a long term and defend the right policies just for the housing, investing in education for the families, and to try that every person could live with dignity. So my final thought, I thought that a lot of people, I mean, before this class, that poor people was just a money problem, but now I understand that poverty is about housing, geography, race, broken relationships, and about a system that benefits the instability. And Desmond gives us simple answers, but oblige us to make us better questions about how good society we are and how we try to help everyone. Thanks.